Welcome back, everyone. Stage 2, The White Knight Awakens. So the episode picks up right where the last one left off, with Lelouch surrounded by, well, a lot of dead bodies. Some belonging to the murdered Japanese people who were living in Shinjuku, others to the royal guard members who just unalived themselves via his Geass, and of course our girl C2 is also amongst those bodies.
I don't understand what it is you wanted me to do.
So I mentioned this previously, but despite agreeing to the terms of the contract as laid out by C2 during that fever dream of a sequence, Lelouch actually has no idea what he's agreed to. And with her seemingly dead, there's really not much for him to go off of. Even still, before he has the opportunity to really give it too much thought, things escalate once again, as Villetta enters the fray piloting her Sutherland, and she's, understandably, a little confused by what's going on here. So, with Lelouch being the, well, last man standing, she questions him as to what went down here.
What happened here, boy? And why is a Britannian student in a place like this?
And Lelouch doesn't care to answer, which is actually pretty impressive on his part, especially as she goes on to fire off a few rounds from her assault rifle. And I just want to point out how big these bullet holes are in comparison to Lelouch, because this is the same gun that was used on Nagata, who, for whatever reason, managed to survive getting hit with one of them, even though his clothes didn't even look like they had been ripped. But whatever. Lelouch then goes on to use his Geass on Villetta, except, well,
I order you to come out.
Who the hell do you think you are to order me?
So, we have a problem. Now, to Lelouch's credit, he immediately discerns that the issue must be the fact that there isn't any direct eye contact, given she's looking at him through her nightmare's camera. And I want to give kudos to Lelouch for putting that together so quickly. I mean, it's not some genius-level deduction or anything, but you have to consider the situation that he's in. Like, from his perspective, this soldier is clearly already on edge. And him not answering her questions right away didn't serve to help the situation at all. I mean, she shot at him. Not in any attempt to kill him, obviously, but still, she's proven herself to be pretty trigger happy. And if she determines that he's not going to cooperate, which is the impression that he's giving right now, then she might very well kill him and just keep it moving. So for him not to immediately freak out says a lot, because if this was, hell, even 5 minutes ago, he would have probably shit himself if he found himself staring down the barrel of a Nightmare's rifle. And rightfully so. But anyway, Lelouch basically tells himself that as long as he can get her out of the nightmare, then his victory in this situation is all but assured. And just as quickly as he came to the conclusion that he needed direct eye contact, he also came up with a way to get her out of her nightmare.
My name is Alan Spacer. My father's a duke. My ID card's in my breast pocket. After you confirm who I am, I'll request your protection.
And again, kudos to him for quickly turning the situation around. Claiming to be nobility immediately makes him someone that she would, theoretically, need to protect. It makes even more sense when you consider the fact that since she rolled up and immediately asked what was going on, it implies that she's not aware of who C2 is, or what these royal guardsmen were actually up to. Like, what I mean is, this whole Alan Spacer routine would not have worked on these royal guardsmen, because they were under direct orders from Bartley and the prince to retrieve this girl and dispose of anyone who found out about her. Like, when I think about this whole situation a little more, Suzaku kinda got himself killed, because his commander literally told all of the honorary Britannians that
recovery of the target will be handled by us, the Royal Guard.
So Suzaku literally jumping in the way that he did was him technically disobeying orders. So because he got involved and found out about her, I honestly feel like they still would have killed him right after they had him kill Lelouch. But I'm going off on a bit of a tangent. My point is, Lelouch was able to piece together that she wasn't a part of the group of men that had tried to kill him. And because of that, he could use this ruse to, at the very least, get her to come out and verify if what he's saying is legit. And the moment she does that, well,
hand your nightmare over to me.
And just like that, her nightmare now belongs to him.
Understood.
Got it.
And I want to point out a couple of things about this. Firstly, this episode introduces the specific animation that accompanies Lelouch's Geass. The way in which you see his Geass fly into Villetta's eyes and then kind of caused this shift within her on a seemingly cellular level. If I had to guess, I'd say that this is like her biological neural network, and the Geass is acting almost like a virus, forcing this change within her that'll compel her to submit to Lelouch's command. And the reason I compare it to a virus is because viruses typically operate by hijacking cells in order to get them to behave however they want. Now, this is obviously different in a lot of ways, but it's just the first thing that came to my mind when thinking about this. Anyway, secondly, I want to point out the difference in how Villetta complies to Lelouch as opposed to those guys from the last episode. Because, like, seriously, what was that shit?
Happily, Your Highness! Fire!
So weird. But anyway.
What the?
So, a few things about this. One, I thought it was interesting that he just let her live. Because, I mean, clearly that was a choice that he made, given the fact that by the time the effect of the Geass wears off, he's already taken off with her nightmare. Meaning that if he wanted to, he could have just mowed her down or, like, ran her over. Which he probably should have, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, to kind of add on to what I was saying about letting her live, I feel it speaks to his character. He's not out here just wantonly murdering anyone who gets in his way. He really only tends to intentionally kill when it serves a purpose. Now, that's not to say that he's in any way a hero out here trying to save lives. In fact, we'll see evidence to the contrary a little later. But what I'm more so saying is that he's not going to kill someone just for the hell of it. And in this case, since she hadn't really done anything and was no longer a threat, he let her live. Anyway, secondly, this moment shows us the after effects of Geass, because we didn't really get to see that with these chucklefucks since, you know, they died. But it's interesting because it's really like she was in some sort of trance, especially with this POV shot we get from her. Like, we can see that her vision is coming back into focus. Also, I do wonder how long she was just standing there. Like, he had enough time to walk past her, get into her nightmare, activate it, and then peel out, leaving no trace behind. Which, you know what? We're actually gonna come back to that in the near future, because that's also pretty odd. But anyway, from there we transition to Lloyd, Cecile, and Suzaku?
So are we having a bad day? Looks like you missed a chance to go to heaven, Private Kururugi.
Hold up. How the fuck are you alive?
How, Sway?
No, seriously, how are you, of all people, here in a med bay being treated? Like, I'm not even talking about the explosion. Everyone survived that. Well, almost everyone. And I'm not even really talking about the gunshot, because that'll be explained in a second too. No, what I'm wondering is, who brought you here? I mean, it couldn't have been these motherfuckers, and since you seem to be only just now waking up, then seriously, who the fuck brought you here? Like, what? Anyway, Suzaku asks where they are, and Lloyd tells him that they're still in Shinjuku, with Cecile following it up by saying that they're safe, seeing as they're near the prince's private convoy, which immediately kind of seems strange, right? Like, the idea of an honorary Britannian receiving medical care while under the protection of Britannian nobility? It's odd. What's even more odd is the fact that despite Lloyd referring to him as an 11, both he and Cecile are actually surprisingly kind.
This is what saved your life, Mr. Suzaku.
I mean, I know that referring to someone by their name is a pretty low bar to clear, but I mean, given the fact that old boy called him, what was it again?
Stinking monkey.
Yeah, I'd say that it's an improvement. Anyway, Lloyd goes on to say that Suzaku is lucky that he had this watch under his uniform, because it's ultimately what saved his life, seeing as it deflected the bullet. Anyway, after Cecile gives Suzaku the watch, Lloyd says,
You 11s believe that gods live inside of everything, even objects, don't you?
and after he said that, I wondered how true that was. And my research led me down a bit of a rabbit hole in regard to the religion known as Shinto. And yeah, this religion, which originates in Japan, does very much hold the belief that gods, or kami, not to be confused with this dude, exist all around us, be it in places, ideas, or even objects. But yeah, before Lloyd gets any deeper into what he's saying, Suzaku cuts him off.
I guess this one...
Is Lelouch... What's the latest on the situation?
I really like the added touch of Suzaku wanting to ask about Lelouch, but stopping himself just in case Lelouch was able to get away before they found out who he was, which is, again, him trying to help out his friend. Anyway, Lloyd goes on to say that the poison gas was released, which has resulted in massive 11 casualties. Now, we know that's a pile of horse shit, but I don't think Lloyd is lying to Suzaku here. I don't think anyone really knows what's going on inside of Shinjuku, aside from the people directly involved with the massacre. But yeah, from there, Lloyd shifts gears and asks Suzaku if he's ever piloted a nightmare, which catches Suzaku off guard.
But there's no way an 11 would be made a night.
And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I wouldn't let someone who I refer to as a stinking monkey in the cockpit of this murder machine, because best believe they'd probably turn it on me, and for good reason. But anyway, Lloyd, seemingly not giving a fuck about the fact that Suzaku is an 11, says,
Congratulations! The only nightmare of its kind awaits you.
More on that in a minute. Anyway, from there, we cut back to the carnage, where we see that Kallen is doing her very best to help out her fellow countrymen. But the battle is beginning to take its toll, as we can see tears forming in the corners of her eyes. And that makes sense. I mean, this is fucking horrific from the perspective of me watching this play out with no stake in the conflict. Meanwhile, she's in it, watching these people be slaughtered for no other reason than the fact that they exist here. Like, it's a lot. Now, in addition to that, I do want to point out something about nightmares, and it's actually something I failed to really bring attention to in the last episode. So, you see this attack that Kallen just used against this tank, this sort of whip? It's called a /Hearken, and we saw her use it in the previous episode to take out a plane, and now we've just seen her use it to take out this tank. I want to bring attention to it because it'll be important at establishing something later in this episode.
I'll decoy them! Get the people out of here! The only ones that'll be captured are those of us in the resistance!
So I really like this in regard to establishing Kallen's character. She's fine for going down for this if it means that she can rescue everyone. And I think that says a lot about who she is. But anyway, the guy she's talking to, a dude named Oogi, tells her that they're surrounded and that they can't get out even if they wanted to. Like, the tension here is palpable as the stakes continue to rise for the Japanese. And then, all of a sudden, we leave the battlefield and head back to Ashford. And it's kind of an insane tonal switch, going from a literal war zone to a school. A school that apparently is blissfully unaware of what's going on in Shinjuku. And we find this out by way of Lelouch calling Shirley to ask if she's seen anything on the news, to which she says that she hasn't. And Lelouch immediately understands what's happening, as he thinks to himself,
I get it. Once they finish everything off, they'll release news that favors the military.
And again, good on him for figuring it out so quickly. It's actually a really smart strategy and speaks to that quote by Winston Churchill. History is written by the victors. Because while this whole incident was triggered by the prince wanting to cover his ass, it'll be all too easy to maintain this false narrative of the insurgents releasing the poison gas themselves. I mean, we already heard Lloyd unwittingly tell the lie to Suzaku. Anyway, the conversation between Lelouch and Shirley continues, and it's oddly lighthearted. Like, Shirley's upset because she thinks he's gambling, and he just smiles as he tells her that he is, before asking her to let his sister know that he'll be home late. And while he's having this conversation, we see him noticing a chessboard on the ground, and we'll come back to that in just a second. Anyway, he ends up hanging up on Shirley, and something worth pointing out is the fact that when she tries to call him back, she can't get through, as the machine says,
"The number you have called is beyond service range."
Which is then followed by Lelouch saying that the Britannians need to keep a lid on information getting out to the general public, which, given him saying that, coupled with Shirley's call failing, I feel it's safe to assume that they must be jamming communications to ensure that nothing gets out. Anyway, Lelouch pulls up a map of the area, and we can see that he's definitely outnumbered, but he has no intention on giving up. I also want to take note of the fact that he says,
They'll have to make do with the pieces they have on the board.
Which implies that he sees this as sort of a chess match, which he'll definitely lean into throughout this episode. Starting with the fact that right after he says this, he actually leaves his nightmare so that he can go down and grab that chess set, which is just so fucking extra. Like, this man is in an active war zone, and he just had to go get that chessboard for really no other reason than aesthetic. Like, just fucking Lelouch, man. Anyway, while he's fucking around getting the chess set, we switch back to Kallen, who, with the use of her /Hearken, has taken out another ship. And again, I'm going to keep coming back to that whenever I see it used, because, like I said, it'll be important in establishing something a little later. Anyway, after Kallen takes out the plane, 2 Sutherlands roll up on her. One of which is piloted by old bitch-ass Jeremiah. And, I mean, seeing as she's rocking an older generation nightmare, on top of the fact that said nightmare only has one arm, Kallen does the only logical thing she can do and runs. Now, as she's trying to outrun them, we see Lelouch pull out a walkie-talkie, and I actually failed to bring this up last time, but this was something that Lelouch grabbed when he was in the trailer of the truck in the previous episode. He took it in hopes that he might use it to barter with the Britannians when he was eventually found. However, now he has a different use for it.
Use the tracks to move to the west entrance.
Who's this?
If you want to win, you're just gonna have to trust me.
To win?
Okay, so at first glance, you might think it's strange of Kallen to just acquiesce to this random voice coming out of her comms device. But when you consider everything that's going on, it's not that unbelievable. I mean, she's being chased by 2 nightmares that are likely minutes, if not seconds, away from finishing her off. So, like, what good would it do for them to try and psych her out by reaching out to her via the radio, you know? Plus, she implied that this is a secret channel, so it would stand to reason that it would, more than likely, be an ally as opposed to an enemy.
Okay, what am I supposed to do now?
Since you trusted me, you're gonna win. Jump onto the train!
So Kallen does as instructed and hops on the train. And I want to point out something minor that I noticed that I thought was kind of cool. How when she hops on the train, you can see that it dents it. It kind of gives you an idea of how heavy these things are. Because despite it being extremely nimble, it actually weighs several tons. But anyway, Jeremiah ends up stopping the train and instructing the other nightmare pilot to continue after Kallen. But the moment he tries is the moment he dies, as we see 2 Harkens pierce their nightmare, one of which actually lobs off the Sutherland's headpiece. Or maybe not? Weird little inconsistency there, but whatever, no biggie. Anyway, Jeremiah is understandably caught off guard by that, especially when he sees that the Harkens were fired by another Sutherland. And not even just another Sutherland, because something worth pointing out is the difference in colors between Sutherland nightmares. Like, as you can see, the Sutherland on the left is all purple, but the one on the right, the one piloted by people like Jeremiah, Villetta, and this other nameless pilot, have a maroon accent on their faceplate and shoulders. This is to differentiate them as the pureblood or purist faction, but we'll talk more about that in a different video. The only reason I'm pointing it out right now is because I imagine it adds an extra layer of concern or nervousness at the fact that he's seeing a purist nightmare firing on him, which would imply that it's likely been claimed by one of the insurgents. Anyway, Lelouch just starts blasting and forces Jeremiah to bend the knee, whether he wants to or not. Now, Jeremiah does try and fire back, but before he can get a shot off, our girl Kallen slides back into the battle, forcing Jeremiah to eject before he winds up getting himself killed. And I guess it's worth pointing out that these things have ejectable cockpits. So yeah, it didn't shoot him too far, but I mean, it was enough for him to survive. Anyway, Kallen's grateful to the person who just saved her life, but when she turns to ask him how he managed to get his hands on a Sutherland, he's already gone. Fucking Batman over here. But yeah, with the immediate threat neutralized, we see Oogi, Tamaki, and some of the other members of the resistance group meeting back up with Kallen.
Kallen! What the hell was that radio message earlier?
He contacted you too?
Sure did. And Yoshida's group ought to be here soon.
And this is important because by way of doing this, by getting each of these groups out of danger, he's cemented himself as someone they ought to work with. Yes, it's strange that he's not being forthcoming with who he is, but he's getting results, and to be honest, in this situation, that's far more important than telling them who he is, especially when his results lead to shit like, well, give me a minute.
Are you in charge?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is worth pointing out. Oogi claims to be the leader, but, I mean, okay, maybe it's just me, but does he give off leader of the Japanese resistance vibes to you? Like, even the way he responded to the question, yeah. Like, it just doesn't seem all that confident, but yeah.
I present to you the cargo in that train over there. They're tools for your victory.
And this is what I was talking about a minute ago when I said our boy is showing results, because he just hooked them up with a gaggle of nightmares. Like, they went from having one outdated model, which, you know, for the sake of accuracy, let's call it what it is, a 4th generation nightmare frame. So they went from having one 4th gen nightmare to having several 5th gens. Like, that's gotta be insane for them. And Kallen's reaction definitely sells that. But But anyway, Lelouch goes on to explain that if they follow his orders, then they will survive. He also adds that he wants Kallen to stay in her Glasgow, as he intends to use her to run decoy. Which makes sense, she's clearly a skilled pilot, both in regards to fighting and running away. Which, no shame, that's how you stay alive to fight another day. But yeah, after relaying all that information to them, he takes a second to himself.
This is wearing me out.
I bet it is, honestly. Like, this is stressful as hell, especially considering the fact that he's actively monitoring and participating in multiple skirmishes simultaneously. Like, y'all heard Oogi when he rolled up. Lelouch, while helping Kallen, and apparently another group that was in duress, also managed to help out Oogi and his group, and they didn't even have a nightmare to back them up. So yeah, I could understand being absolutely exhausted, and yet the war wages on.
Regardless, I'll need determination to succeed. After all, I'm betting my life in this game.
So I like the fact that they show him kind of psyching himself up. Like, he's exhausted, but he's got to push forward and power through it because while he's trying to view it through the lens of a game, it's very much not that. This is real. And if he doesn't plan everything perfectly, he'll end up dead alongside everyone else here. But anyway, from there we transition back to the Britannian war room.
They're mounting a minor resistance against us, but they pose little threat to our vastly superior army.
So, a couple things here. One, I like the fact that we're able to see the battle from both sides, because it serves to give us a better understanding of how each side is handling the conflict. Like, in regard to the insurgents, all of them are out there fighting for their lives. From their lowest ranks to their highest, they're all in the trenches, giving it everything they've got. Meanwhile, these guys are mostly unbothered. I mean, this douchebag is mostly concerned with preserving his status as a prince. Like, the thought of losing here hasn't even actually occurred to him yet. Him or his generals. They're just so confident that victory is assured. And, I mean, I can't even fault them for feeling that way. I mean, under normal circumstances, they'd have the advantage by a mile, 1,000 miles. Like, they'd be wiping the floor with them. But, as they'll soon find out, these aren't normal circumstances. And you know what? The situation kind of reminds me of Death Note. Yes, I know, another Death Note reference. But if you are watching that series, I'm actually gonna jump into spoilers for the series as a whole real quick. So, take from that what you will. Now, the comparison I'm making is how Light doesn't view Nier and Mello as legitimate threats. Like, he thinks that he could low diff them, and it's that arrogance that ultimately fucks him over. And I feel like I kind of see that reflected here, because while the Britannians think they've got this one in the bag, they'll soon find out that that's not the case. Anyway, the last thing the Britannians discuss before we switch back to the Japanese is the fact that the prince still wants C2 back, whether she's dead or alive. And yeah.
Hey, are you certain about this whole thing? They've all had their IFFs removed. What if this is a trap?
Okay, look, it's a fair question to at least throw that out there. But at the same time, it's also one that's easily answered because, I mean, what do you have to lose? Like, this guy has already saved each of your asses, and you think he did it so that he could give you nightmares so that you could... I mean, I can't even really follow that train of thought anywhere, because... what's the trap here? And Oogi even responds by saying that the Britannians have a total advantage, so there'd be no need for them to try and trap them. Now, I will point out the line about having their IFFs removed, and for the sake of clarification, an IFF is an identification friend or foe transmitter, so that you know who's an enemy and who's not, because in the fog of war, it can be difficult to determine who's who. But the fact that the IFFs have been removed is pretty important, because it makes them basically invisible to their enemies. Now, I don't have a problem with Lelouch getting his hands on these nightmares, because I imagine that would be pretty easy to do while piloting this nightmare in addition to having his Geass. I mean, we saw a train in an earlier shot, so if he cut it off with his nightmare, he could order the conductor out of the cab and then just hop out of his nightmare and use his Geass on him. What I do have a problem with, however, is the fact that the IFFs were removed, because when did you have the time to do that? Like, that just seems super convenient for y'all. But hell, given y'all are still up against the ropes, I'm willing to let it slide. Also, by the way, that's Tamaki, the dude I was talking about in the previous episode. You know, the one who messed up the whole operation and whatnot. Yeah, that's him. But anyway, from there, Lelouch reaches back out to Oogi and his crew.
P1, can you move?
So, this is actually low-key mad disrespectful. Because remember how I mentioned the whole chess motif? Well, I never noticed this before, but he's using chess terminology when speaking about these insurgents. For example, later on he goes on to refer to Kallen as Q1, which means he's referring to her as the queen. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with chess, the queen is a very powerful chess piece, and it's fitting that Kallen would be referred to as that, especially given how Lelouch intends on using her, but we'll get to that in a second. Anyway, the reason I'm saying referring to Oogi as P1 is disrespectful is because he's calling him a pawn. And don't get me wrong, a pawn is a useful and necessary chess piece, but he's referring to the leader of their group as a fucking pawn. And the thing about pawns is that they're the least unique chess piece on the board, given the fact that they compose half of each team's side. They're expendable. Now, they can be promoted and whatnot, but that's a conversation for another day. I just thought it was kind of messed up that he referred to their leader as his pawn.
Can't you tell us who you are?
I can't do that. What if these signals are being intercepted?
That was actually a really good answer. He's made it clear that he's extremely vital to the success of this operation. So keeping his identity a secret so that they'll never be able to find him is the smart thing to do. Also, I want to point out this shot of Kallen traveling through the battlefield, because this is what I was referring to when I said that it made a lot of sense to refer to her as his queen, given the queen's ability to shoot all across a chessboard. Anyway, Lelouch's response is enough to convince Oogi, and he decides to put his faith in their mysterious new ally by following his command, which ultimately leads to them successfully ambushing two Britannian nightmares. And I also want to point out that this plan was accomplished by way of using Kallen as bait. And the fact that she willingly agrees to it without any sort of pushback speaks to the faith that she has in him. But yeah.
An ID signal can be a double-edged sword.
That's a fair point, especially when your enemy has access to it. Think of it like getting a 3-kill streak in Call of Duty and unlocking a UAV. And yeah, from here, the episode dives deep into the action as the insurgents begin chopping away at the Britannians little by little. And I'll just kind of casually mention a few things here and there. Firstly, the Britannians are freaking out, and rightfully so. I mean, they have no idea what the hell is going on. Whole squads are being wiped out by enemies that they can't see or track. I had referenced the fog of war earlier, and these guys are trapped in it with seemingly no way out. And the thing about it is, they're not used to this. Hell, they've probably never had to contend with an enemy like this. I mean, they've always had the advantage because of the nightmares, but now those same nightmares are being used against them, and they're panicking. Got old Bartley over here fumbling over his words and sweating because he's like, what the hell is going on? Now, secondly, Lelouch is proving just how excellent a tactician he is. Sure, he's got the advantage by way of knowing the location of his enemies, but it still takes a special kind of person to be able to quickly and efficiently analyze information that's constantly changing from second to second. So kudos to this man. Now, thirdly, I like the fact that we can see Lelouch sweating. He's definitely confident in his own skill, but that doesn't negate the fact that this is stressful and intense, and he realizes the cost of losing here. So I like that the show doesn't act like he's unfazed by all of this just because he's winning right now. But anyway, fourthly, there's this shot of a nightmare getting hit with like 8 different Harkens simultaneously, and we see it getting hoisted into the air, meaning these things have literally metric tons of force pushing them. Again, this will be important later. Now, fifthly, I love how Kallen rolls up on this one dude and just falcon punches him and just keeps it moving. And sixthly, I want to take note of the fact that Lloyd pops up at one point and tells him that he's ready to send out his special unit if they want him to. But the prince shuts that down as he finally gets his ass up and walks over to the table to throw his own tactical skill into the mix. Well, I say skill, but interestingly enough, 3 different people criticize the decision that he makes.
My lord, that will break the encirclement!
Who ordered them to break formation?
Well, that's a more stupid move than I expected.
And I thought that was kind of funny. But anyway, Lelouch goes on to absolutely embarrass the fuck out of this man. And it's kind of hilarious because the prince looks so confident, like he's so sure that he's gonna wipe them all out. But nah, that ain't how this is going down. Because essentially what Lelouch goaded him into doing is sending all of his soldiers to a single location. Because from my understanding, it seems like they're able to track Kallen's nightmare, and so they're all closing in on her specifically. But what they don't know is that Kallen isn't where they think she is. Because yes, she is at that location, but where they're working under the assumption that she's in the streets with them, in reality, she and the other members of her group have all gone underground. And this is important because once all of the Britannian soldiers have encircled and moved into the area, Kallen fires her /Hearkens at the ceiling above her, so right underneath the streets, which causes the whole thing to come crumbling down, bringing down all of the nightmares that were up there. And to be clear, it's quite a few nightmares. Now, I will say that I find it a little hard to believe that she was just able to roll out before this whole area got destroyed, but screw it, we'll roll with it. Also, I'm going to point out again that she brought all of this down with a single /Hearken. Again, sorry, we'll get to the significance of that in just a few minutes. But yeah, in response to Lelouch's absolute W in this situation, he does this. And I just love it. I don't know why, but this man's laugh just warms my heart. But anyway.
My plan worked, didn't it? I can do it. I can defeat Britannia.
So I love the energy here for two reasons. One, it shows us that this man is not a hero. Like, look, these guys are assholes, monsters, really. But the genuine euphoria he's feeling from killing these men is in no way heroic. This dude is also bad, but he is, without a doubt, the lesser of two evils in this situation. But anyway, the second reason I love the energy here is because you can tell that this means a lot to him, because he's wanted this for damn near half of his life. The power to take down this corrupt ass empire once and for all. So to see him finally get a taste of what that feels like, I think it's incredibly powerful and rewarding, not just for him, but for those of us who are now invested in him and his journey. Anyway, as Lelouch revels in the fact that he's put Clovis in check, we see that Clovis is shook.
Who in the hell am I up against?
Dude had to literally take a step back and have a moment of reflection, cause old boy is out there getting cooked.
What if he's even better than Tohdoh?
Oh, okay. We got a little name drop here to a future character, and I think that's actually pretty significant in regards to storytelling, because when you hear that name again, you'll immediately associate it with someone who's, at the very least, on par with Lelouch in terms of tactical skill. And you'll wonder, is this person a threat? Will they be an ally? Who exactly is this Tohdoh, and what effect will they have on the story? So, yeah. Anyway, at this point, Clovis is desperate, and so...
Lloyd!
Yes, Your Highness?
Can it win? Will your toy beat them?
My lord, please be so kind as to call it Lancelot.
And I like the dynamic that Lloyd has with this guy. Like, he's not kissing old boy's ass, and even goes as far as to correct him for something as trite as referring to his creation as a toy. Lloyd is such an unorthodox dude, and that's why I love him so much. Anyway, welcome back to... Damn it, no. I gotta figure out something to put here to break the episode up. If any of y'all have any ideas, let me know in the comment section. Maybe y'all can point out stuff I've missed in the previous episode, or... I don't know, we'll figure something out. But yeah, we come back from the break to get this super long, drawn-out activation sequence for the nightmare known simply as Lancelot, which kind of immediately evokes a sense of knighthood, as Lancelot was King Arthur's most skilled knight. It also kind of hints at the fact that if there's one knight of the round being evoked, then perhaps there are more. But more on that much later. Anyway, to pull focus away from the startup sequence itself, I want to take note of a conversation between Suzaku and Cecile. It starts with her mentioning that they had Suzaku test his skills in a simulator, and he apparently scored very high, meaning he's got a sort of natural aptitude for this kind of thing. Now, from there, the conversation gets kinda vague, in the sense that Suzaku asks,
about what you told me earlier.
It could be, but the possibility is nearly zero.
And it's not really clear what it is they're referring to. Like, it's left intentionally vague, but if I had to guess, I would argue that perhaps Suzaku mentioned Lelouch to her and whether or not she thought he might still be alive. Anyway, something else I want to point out is that Cecile tells Suzaku to be careful because
the new system is not outfitted with an ejection mechanism.
And we're just going to put a pin in that for right now. But anyway, from there we're introduced to
Lancelot, the world's first 7th generation nightmare frame.
And what a beaut she is. Not my favorite of the series, but definitely a solid contender for top 3. But let's talk about it real quick. Now, the first thing that stood out to me was the headpiece, because gone is the alien-esque design of both the Glasgow and the Sutherland. Now we have one that looks like a person, really. I guess more like a knight, like a human in a suit of armor. It's a slick design, and I like the white and gold accents. It's sexy, I can't lie. To get further into the specs, let's compare it to a Sutherland real quick. So it's roughly the same height, actually a little taller, but it's about 1 ton lighter. And I imagine the lack of weight helps with its speed, because as we'll soon find out, this thing is fast as fuck. But yeah, in addition to that, it definitely feels newer, looking much more fluid and sleek than the Sutherland. Like, using the comparison I made between cars again, the Sutherland looks like an old car given its more boxy aesthetic, whereas the Lancelot seems to have more curves. Sure, it's still got edges, but it's just, well, it just feels much more modern. Anyway, the last thing I'll say for now is the fact that they refer to this thing as a 7th generation nightmare. And to put that in perspective, the most advanced nightmare we've seen thus far is a 5th generation Sutherland. So this thing rips right past the 6th generation and into the 7th. So yeah, the chasm between these two is twice as wide than that between the Glasgow and the Sutherland. So take from that what you will. Anyway, during the activation process, a lot of fancy technical jargon gets thrown out. Talks of an energy filler, which are just big-ass batteries that are used to power these things, a core luminous, and Yggdrasil drive, which are kind of like components of this thing's engine. That's the only comparison I can really make. Though I can tell you that this cube thing is a piece of securitite. You might remember me mentioning that in the last video as a resource the Britannians wanted from the Japanese. Kind of one of their main reasons for invading. Furthermore, I like the idea of the Yggdrasil drive, another Norse reference in addition to the whole Ragnarok connection, even though the two are not really related in this story. But yeah, the sequence goes on, showing all manner of hype mech shit, before it finally ends with Suzaku taking off.
Lancelot, launch!
And just like that, the White Knight awakens.
Running full throttle right out of the gate!
Dead ass my reaction to watching this sequence every time. And I want to point out that from the jump, we can see a massive difference in performance because this motherfucker just took off. I don't know how fast he's going, but fast enough that we can see that he's visibly just cutting through the air. It's honestly so cool, and Suzaku agrees.
Cooler than the manual. With this...
Now, I want to point this out. This man was shot today. Sure, the bullet bounced off his pocket watch, but I mean, dude was still injured, and yet he's out here in these streets ready to put in some work. And let's be clear, he's finna go to work. Starting with old bitch-ass Tamaki.
What is that?
It doesn't look like a Sutherland.
And just like that, he's already taken someone out. And can we take a second to slow that down? Because what even was that? The Sutherland's tracking system couldn't even keep up with its movements. That's how fast he was zipping from side to side. And not only that, he finished this dude off before he could even finish his second sentence. Just lob that nightmare's head clean off. It's insane, and it's only just the start. But before we get back into that, let's check back in with Lelouch, who's still chuckling to himself with how well it's all going. Well, that is until he gets a call.
Reporting enemy presence.
Reinforcements? Real battle is different, isn't it?
Oh, you have no idea, my guy.
I think it's a new model. Never seen anything like it.
What's happening out there?
So we're not even witnessing what it is Suzaku is doing, but we're still able to comprehend just how much of a threat this guy is. this guy mentioned that he's already taken out 4 dudes, and within the span of that very short conversation with Lelouch, he also took that man out as well. Like, Suzaku's out here getting shit done, and just look at him over here, dead ass looking like a Super Saiyan 2 nightmare, bro. Like, it's insane. But something I want to point out is the fact that his environmental scanners are located on his chest as opposed to his head. I thought that was interesting and further speaks how different the design is for the Lancelot as opposed to both the Glasgow and the Sutherland. But the differences definitely don't stop there, as we see this man go on to whip out an energy shield. Yes, an energy shield that reflects bullets.
What? It reflects bullets?
Yes, Lelouch, it reflects fucking bullets, because apparently the speed, agility, and Super Saiyan aesthetic weren't enough. This thing is a monster of a weapon.
Useless so-called terrorists.
And that's, like I said, Lelouch is not a hero. Like, these men are probably out there dying, and he's just calling them useless. He deadass does not care about them or their struggle at all. And as much as I like Lelouch, I can't not speak to the fact that he's really just using them. They're a means to an end for him.
With all the resources they have, they're being beaten by one unit.
So he's being a prick, but I mean, to be fair, from his perspective, I could understand how hearing that might be a little annoying. Like, it's one unit, one person is out here giving y'all this much trouble? Like, without seeing the Lancelot in action, it would be difficult to believe that this is possible. But anyway, Suzaku goes on to continue giving them the business, using them slash Hearkens like fucking kunai with chain. And something worth pointing out about his slash Hearkens is that they're located on his wrist, as opposed to his shoulders, like with the Sutherlands and Glasgows. And if I had to guess, I'd say this helps with accuracy quite a bit. And I know I've taken note of people using slash Hearkens, but I'm not going to focus on him using it because it's just not the same. I mean, he's using it in ways that are actually kind of insane. Like, at one point, he shoots one into the ground to launch himself high into the air and then comes back down and drops one of his legs on the shoulder of this Sutherland. Like, he's moving like an Ava unit almost, which is not at all how these other nightmares move. Like, this man is actually terrifying. Anyway, Lelouch is trying his best to help his men hold off the Lancelot, but Suzaku is just wiping the floor with all of them, even using his slash Hearkens in creative ways, using them like Edward uses his automail and just slicing these dudes up. And it's worth pointing out that with Lelouch's forces quickly dwindling, we see his demeanor change. Old boy is definitely shooketh. Meanwhile, old Prince Douchebag over here has calmed down, though it is worth mentioning that he says,
"Now I'll owe my older brother a debt I don't mean to incur."
And we'll speak more about that a little later. Now, while Lelouch is panicking, trying to make sense of how this could even be possible, we get a quick shot of Lloyd and Cecile speaking about how well Suzaku is doing, and how his readings reflect that. So I just figured I'd point that out real quick. Anyway, we switch back to Suzaku for a moment, and it's kinda hilarious because he goes on to make his intentions crystal clear.
No matter what it takes, I've got to save Lelouch and that girl.
So the reason he's going so hard on these people is because he desperately wants to save his friend and that girl. All the while not having any clue that the person leading this group is that friend that he wants so badly to save. I love the way the drama is just baked into this shit. It's so good. Even better when you consider the fact that the next nightmare Suzaku sets his sights on is Lelouch. But okay, so Suzaku proceeds to blitz our boy Lelouch, and y'all take a look at this shit. He does the exact same kick he did in the previous episode. Same exact thing. Which, how is that even possible in a nightmare? But anyway, just as Suzaku is about to finish our boy off, our girl Kallen rolls up and saves his bacon.
Hey, I'm returning the favor!
And okay, y'all know how I've been talking about these damn slash Hearkens this whole episode? Well, it's because I wanted to make it clear just how OP the Lancelot is, if that wasn't already clear enough. But whatever, I want to take note of the fact that Kallen shoots this thing with her slash Hearken at point blank range, and he just catches it. And it's not like this thing isn't still super powerful, because you can see his hand vibrating as it's pushing into it. But even with all of that vibrating, it doesn't get pushed back. And instead of breaking the Lancelot's hand, the Lancelot shatters that thing. Like, think about that. This thing has been used repeatedly to destroy ships, tanks, and even other nightmares. And this motherfucker just caught it like it was a baseball. Like, damn, man. This is a 7th gen nightmare, y'all. But anyway, Kallen loses because, I mean, it's not even a competition. But trust me, she'll have another shot at him. And you know what? I'm honestly curious as to whether or not Suzaku's actually killed anyone today. Because a lot of these people seem to have been ejecting. Even Oogi, who couldn't eject given how he was taken out, still makes it out alive. So he might not be killing any of these people. Maybe. I don't know. But anyway, like I said, Kallen ejects, and it's wild because we can see her eject from the top of this building, probably no more than a few seconds after she shot her /Hearken at his hand. And Lelouch is like right there when she does it. And yet, somehow, by the time she's ejected, he's super far away. Like, think of the logistics here. He managed to drop from whatever floor that is up there down to the ground and get that far away in 10 seconds? Like, that's actually ridiculous. But anyway, despite this crazy head start Lelouch has, Suzaku catches up to him. And Lelouch is desperate to get this man off his nuts, to the point that he starts shooting up buildings. Buildings that could very well still have people in them. But more on that in a second. So despite Lelouch damn near dropping a building on this guy, he doesn't let up. Which, I mean, damn, man.
That damn monster's unstoppable!
Yeah, basically, but luckily for Lelouch, Suzaku gets a bit distracted as he goes out of his way to save a woman and child who got caught up in Lelouch's firing. Like, both Lelouch and Lloyd were shocked by that shit.
In the midst of battle, he rescues someone?
Huh? He saved someone?
Yes.
It's very strange of him.
And yeah, that is a bit odd, but also, that's just who he is, which definitely lends credence to the idea that he might not have killed anyone. And, I mean, if anyone could avoid killing while steeped in a battle like this, it would be Suzaku while piloting this unit. Anyway, the fact that Suzaku did this is interesting in another way as well, because when he puts the woman down on the ground, she's terrified. And, like, why wouldn't she be? This man is a part of the same crew who just rolled up on them and started murdering them all wholesale. Hell, if anything, in saving this woman, he's disobeying orders. Again, like, he should have let her die. That's what he's supposed to do. Which is, like, I got so caught up in how badass he is, but, like, he's working for the same people who made the call to slaughter everyone here. Like, it's wild, honestly. But we'll get more into the complex nature of both of these guys as the story continues. But yeah, with Suzaku's focus elsewhere, Lelouch is given the opportunity to escape, and so he does. From there, we cut back to Lloyd and Cecile, who are commenting on how well Suzaku is performing.
My, that boy's an excellent piece of equipment.
And two things about this. One, this speaks to how Lloyd views Suzaku. Not as a person so much, but more so a piece of equipment that fits well with the Lancelot. And I don't mention that despairingly, but more so to better explain how he views Suzaku and really people in general. And secondly, you see that dude over there just kind of casually strolling through here? Well, I'm pretty sure that's Lelouch. And I say that because he's headed in the direction of the prince's convoy. And in the next scene, we see this.
Stop there! Your ID!
At last, the checkpoint. Now I'd like you to let me pass.
So yeah, I thought that was cool that we just see him casually walking by. Even cooler is the fact that he probably overheard them talking about Suzaku right there, but he had no way of knowing that that's who they were talking about. It's a great attention to detail because had they said Suzaku's name, he might have tried inquiring as to what that was about. Anyway, in regard to Lelouch's plan, it seems as though he intended to work his way into the prince's convoy to get an audience with him. And it looks like he succeeded. But before we can see what he does next, we head back to Kallen, who's just met back up with Oogi and the others in a building that the Japanese seem to all be huddled up in.
It's your fault. This is what happens when you oppose the Britannians.
What? Why, you gutless coward?
So I can actually see where both of these people are coming from. On one hand, I can understand why this random Japanese person, who I'm imagining was just minding his own business, living out his life in Shinjuku, would take issue with what's happening here. Like, if y'all hadn't attacked them, then this would not be happening right now. But because you made the decision to do that, I mean, so many of us had to die. But on the other hand, I can also understand where Tamaki is coming from, because one, what they did in the Tokyo settlement did not warrant this kind of response, especially when you consider that they only actually killed 8 Britannians. The other 51 people were, unfortunately, Japanese, and we know that they don't give a fuck about them. And furthermore, they're not even killing all of these people because of that. They're doing it so that this one person doesn't get disinherited for doing what he thinks is some shady shit. This has absolutely nothing to do with the lives lost in that incident, and everything to do with him holding on to his power. So when I look at this from Tamaki's POV, I'd say that fighting back is necessary, because at the end of the day, they're willing to commit atrocities like this without so much as batting an eye. Sure, this time it's because they stole something, but who's to say they couldn't just as easily find another justification for slaughtering people, you know?
How many people were killed because of this?
Shut up! Quit crying!
Now, I will say that this feels very terrorist-like. Like, I get that they're keeping them here for their own safety, but holding them at gunpoint feels, I don't know, it has me feeling some kind of way. But then, fuck man, this is war, and this is an unfortunate reality of that. Like, we know these aren't the bad guys, per se, but this feels very villain-like. And you know what? I actually really like how morally gray all of this is. Like, one of our protags is kind of a piece of shit who uses people like they're chess pieces in a game. But at the same time, he's going against an empire that robbed an entire country of its identity. Meanwhile, our other protag is out here actively saving people in the middle of a war zone. But at the same time, he's working for the empire that robbed an entire country of its identity, a country of which he was a citizen of. Like, it's so complicated, and it's part of the reason this is just such a fascinating thing to watch. Anyway, Kallen and Oogi discuss the person who was helping them, but before they can get too deep into the conversation, the room gets rushed by enemy forces. And it honestly seems like there's just no way out at this point.
We should have used the poison gas! Damn Nagata to hell!
Oh, fuck you, Tamaki. Like, Nagata literally blew himself up for the sake of trying to take some of these assholes out with him. Like, Tamaki, just fucking go eat copious amounts of dog shit, you troglodyte.
Prepare to fire!
So, it honestly looks like it's a wrap for them. I mean, they are dead ass about to start firing. And I want to take note of the name Kallen just called out, because it's actually her brother's name. And we'll talk about him more later on, but I just thought it was interesting that, much like Lelouch, her last thought before she thought she was going to die was of her brother. But anyway, just as they're about to start firing, this happens.
Attention all forces! Cease fire at once! All casualties, whether Britannian or 11, shall be treated equally and without prejudice. In the name of Clovis La Britannia, you are hereby ordered. Cease fire at once!
And just like that, the day is saved, thanks to Lelouch. Yeah, cool. But I'm not gonna lie, I still think that they would have just fired on all of these people. But whatever. After a quick montage showing us all of the characters reacting to this sudden heel turn, we head back to Clovis, who's now alone with Lelouch, likely by way of him Geassing everyone on the convoy so that they leave them alone. Though it's worth pointing out that Clovis hasn't actually seen Lelouch's face yet, and I'll explain why that's important in a second. Anyway, Clovis asks him what he intends to do next, jokingly saying,
"And what shall we do now? Sing a few lively ballads? Or perhaps a nice game of chess?"
And it's so wild that he doesn't actually seem scared at all. He looks annoyed, which is interesting. But anyway, in response, Lelouch says that has a familiar ring to it, going on to claim,
"Don't you recall? The two of us used to play chess together as boys. Of course, I would always win."
And I like the mention of chess here, and the fact that Lelouch says that he would always win, which, I mean, was technically the case here today. But yeah, after that, Lelouch drops quite a bombshell as he says,
"It's been a long time, big brother."
And yeah, this guy is Lelouch's big brother. Now, this might not really come as too much of a surprise. I mean, I did mention at the end of the previous video that Lelouch had invoked the name of his father when casting as Geass. And if his father is the Emperor of Britannia, and this douchebag's a Prince of Britannia, then that would mean that he, too, is the son of the Emperor, thus making them brothers. Though, as Lelouch goes on to state, they're only half-brothers, seeing as Lelouch is
the eldest son of the late consort Marianne and 17th in line to the imperial throne.
And we'll talk more about all of that in a future video. But anyway, Clovis is shocked because as Lelouch goes on to state, apparently everyone is under the impression that he was dead, which made me think of that Mark Twain quote, "The reports of my death are greatly exaggerated." But yeah, again, we'll dive deeper into all of that in a future video. So, for now, we'll end things with Lelouch telling Clovis that he's very much still alive, while adding,
"I have returned, Your Highness, and I've come back to change everything."
And roll credits. Anyway, that's the end of this video, but if y'all are hungry for more content, then come on over to the Patreon, because right now the videos for both episode 27 and episode 28 of Death Note are currently live, with the third video for Code Geass dropping later this month. And speaking of Patreon, I want to take a second to thank all the folks over there who help make these videos possible. Starting things off, I want to say thank you to our 21 admirable assessors. I also want to give a big thanks to all 108 of our invaluable investigators. And in addition to them, I want to shout out our 8 remarkable researchers: Arrow Falcon Green, Bad Wi-Fi Club, Game and Alchemist, Pellets, The Best, Trinity Schiffer, Vanellian, and Yggdrasil. And lastly, praise be to our 8 official overanalyzers: Asia, Cavarax XE, C-Mart, Croy Raiden, Emilia, Frigid Fox, I Am the Blonde Asshole, and Joey Hellbig. I just want to say thanks again to all of y'all for helping make these videos possible. It really does mean a lot. But yeah, like always, if you liked this video, then consider dropping a like. If you really liked it, then consider subscribing. And if you just loved it and want to see more sooner, then consider joining the Patreon. Anyway, that's it for this time. Until next time, friends, peace.